Hello, welcome. I'm Carruthers of healingstars.com, and this masterclass is bringing heaven down to earth. It's the language of astrology, and this quote here: astrology can function like a roadmap, and it points to our destiny, so we can be prepared for what's up ahead. Astrology is a language. It's not a belief system. I need to add in there. Like all languages, we will benefit when we know the basics in order to learn how it works. So bringing heaven down to earth. The magician. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. Ascribed to Hermes Trismegistus. Get your tongue around that name. And it's taken from a very ancient text called the Emerald Tablet. And it's called the Hermetic Principle. Hermes is another name for Mercury, by the way. So through thousands of years of observations and correlation, astrologers know there's a synchronicity between what the planets are doing in the heavens and what is happening to us on Earth. So the foundation of astrology, that's like all languages, we need to learn the basics in order to know our craft. And they are the 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water, the 12 houses, the 12 signs, and the 3 qualities called cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And the magician is a master of his craft. So on his table are the symbols of the 4 elements. The wand is fire, the pentacle is earth, the sword is air, and the cup is water. So as you can see, he's holding one arm up to heaven and the opposite arm down to earth. And he has that symbol of an infinity above his head. And in the tarot, he is the number 1 card after the Fool, and he is the magician, or the magus, another word. Now planets. Here they are. There's one missing. I still use Pluto after Neptune. But if you think of your birth chart, it's like the story of your life. It's like a play. So Mercury, these are in order, the correct order, though the distance between these planets is just, for a point of a graphic, lined up in this way. So Mercury, tiny little planet. Here's Mercury here. There's Venus. And then the Earth. So Venus and Mercury can never be far away from the Earth because they're orbiting the Earth. Next comes Mars. So Mars takes 2 years to orbit around the Earth, the Sun, because then we get Jupiter, then we get Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And notice the relative size. Jupiter is huge. It is massive compared to, obviously, the size of Mars, which is quite small compared to it. So if you think of the planets, they're like actors. They move. And 10 planets plus Chiron. Chiron isn't a planet. It's actually a new body called a centaur. So this is the order they are in from the sun. The signs are like the costumes the actors wear. There are 12 signs, and they can be divided up into the 4 elements: fire, earth, air, water. And the elements repeat 3 times and are always in the same order: fire, earth, air, water. And these can then be divided into 3 qualities called cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Stay tuned, I will be explaining all in my slides. So the houses of the chart are a bit like the scenes of the play of your life, and there are 12 houses. And there's a natural zodiac where planets are in their own signs and houses. So here, diagram here, the chart, the natural zodiac and planets in their own signs. And the planets are in their correct order from the sun. So the first house, the houses always go anti-clockwise. So Mars naturally belongs to Aries. It only makes that connection every 2 years. Venus, Taurus. Mercury, Gemini, 3rd house. Moon belongs naturally in Cancer in the 4th house. The Sun is Leo. Mercury again repeats. Notice they repeat. Mercury is in Virgo. Venus is in Libra. Mars and Pluto are in Scorpio. And currently, as I'm talking, Mars is in Scorpio. Jupiter, Sagittarius, it's just changed sign. So Saturn naturally belongs to Capricorn. And as I'm speaking, Saturn is in the sky in that sign of Capricorn. It does last a long time. It's 2.5 years. It's still there. So Aquarius, naturally, originally, was also Saturn. But nowadays, we astrologers, use Uranus, the new planet, compared to the old planets. And then finally, Pisces, the 12th house. Again, naturally, Jupiter, but also now connected to Neptune. Very few people will have this natural chart, if any. So the building blocks, these houses, dividing that wheel into 12 sectors, they are areas of life's experience. So as I've said, the scenes of the play and go anti-clockwise. Birth itself is the ascendant or the rising sign, has two ways of saying the same thing. It's the 1st house. So planets are actually moving clockwise. So you may well have a planet here in the 1st house, which will be very significant for you. And it will be the first planet to rise above the horizon. So the horizon is the horizontal line, just like it says, horizon. So the 4 elements, fire, earth, air, water, as I've said, they always are in the same order. So the 1st house is fire, the 5th house is fire, and the 9th is fire. Then the earth, 2, 6, 10. And then the air houses, communication houses, are the 3rd, 7th, and the 11th. And finally, the emotional, the water houses, are the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. So here you can see I've said it in a different way. At a glance, if you know your sun sign, most people do, you can find out, are you a fire sign, earth, air, or water? I'm a Scorpio sign, a water sign. So house meanings, and this is only a brief description of each house. There's a lot more that could be said here. A whole book has been written on house meanings by Howard Susportus, by the way. He's an excellent astrologer. He's no longer on the planet, but a brilliant author. So the ascendant of the 1st house is your personality. It's your physical body, your appearance, and how you dawn on others. What they first see when you walk in a room is your ascendant. So if you have a planet in the 1st house, it will dominate more than the sign. Most important, that. The 2nd house, finances. This is the earth house, so we're grounding. Finances, possessions, and self-value and values. How you earn money. What do you value about yourself? Very important. 3rd house, communication. These are the first people we meet in our life, siblings, neighbours, also here, right next door. Short journeys and early education. Short journeys is a really important one because the 9th opposite is long journeys. So a short journey is something that doesn't take you very long to get from A to B. The 4th house, this is the root of the chart. It's below the horizon and is the family or the mother, the home, roots and ancestors. It's an unconscious energy because it's below the horizon. And then the 5th house, children, recreation, entertainment, love affairs and gambling. It's a very positive house, the 5th house, extremely positive. It's always nice when you have any planet transiting through your 5th house. It will be very, very good for you. 6th house is health, service, jobs, your job or jobs might have more than one, pets, small animals, and servants. Now, nowadays, our servants are things such as our washing machine, our dishwasher, those household servants that we all hopefully need, and we have. And also health in terms of habits. So brush your teeth every day is going to help keep your teeth healthy. And habits are something that can be very difficult to change. Notice that. So the 7th house, this is opposite the 1st now. Notice the colour wheel I use. So red is opposite green, is opposite red in the colour wheel. Hopefully that helps you to understand. So the 7th house is all about relationships, marriage, of course. It's also contracts, partnerships, clients, if you're a therapist, partnerships, business and personal, both. It's all about the other, what you see. It's also can be enemies, but you see them. You're not, they're right opposite you. In the UK, the Houses of Parliament, the opposition sits opposite the government, so everyone can see each other. Now, the 8th house is a very deep house. It's a water sign house. So the 8th house, business transactions, sexuality, life and death matters, inheritances and other people's money. This can also be things such as a mortgage for your house, the bank. It's that kind of contract that you might have. The 9th house, another very positive house, all the fire sign houses are, it's higher education. So we're talking now, diploma, PhD, university, anything such as that. Long distance travel. So in the States, it would be from one coast to the other. That is long distance. In the UK, that would be going abroad, what we used to call, quite an old-fashioned word now, but certainly, anything like Europe would be long distance. So aeroplanes are involved usually. Publishing, that's an interesting one, and the law. The midheaven and the 10th house, here it is right at the top, usually shown with a little arrow. This is your profession. This is your status, and I use the significator of father as the, somebody says, what do you do? Who are you? Usually we use our father's surname as we're growing up, of course. But your profession, where you are in the world. So when people say, what do you do? They are asking for that. And of course, if you get married, that's a 10th house change for you in terms of status. You're now a married person. Now the 11th house is games, friendships, groups of people, hopes and dreams. Though I nowadays associate dreams and hopes more with the 12th house than the 11th. The 12th house, final house, is also pre-birth, the womb, and it's about compassion, spirituality, limitations, solitude, but also charities, people who need help. In another very important association of that 12th house. So hospices and hospitals are 12th house. It's also hidden enemies. Now I would also describe that as the ego. What is blocking our way in our life? Things that the ego, in my definition from A Course in Miracles, it's the ego is the part of us that it fears the future because it's the unknown and keeps us caught in fear. Very important to acknowledge. Now I'm showing here the chart, January the 1st in the UK, except for London, and it's 1 minute past midnight. Always in the UK, we always get 7 degrees Libra as the rising sign, every single year. So any leader, and this applies to Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister, he has Libra as his rising sign. So he is very connected to the UK. This also applied to Margaret Thatcher, David Cameron, I'm trying to think of other ones, not Tony Blair, no, but and this is where countries often will vote in somebody who is connected to the chart of the country and also the New Year chart is in itself a very important one. So here it's called the beginner's chart. What is very important, immediately I saw there's no fire in this chart. We only have Chiron in the sign of Aries, a fire sign, and Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer. Very powerful always. You're going to get Earth because the Sun will always be in Capricorn, but also air and a lot of water energy in this particular year. The reason being, we're going through a long transit of Neptune in Pisces, the water sign, but the moon is joining Neptune. Now that is exact, virtually dead on exact. So that the moon changes sign every 2.5 days. So that is a very important signature for the new year. We also have Mercury, Jupiter, South Node, Sun, Saturn, Pluto. They are all in Capricorn, a very powerful Capricorn chart. Mercury isn't necessarily going to be in Capricorn. It could actually be in Sagittarius or Aquarius, but it's always close to the Sun. Jupiter is very significant now because it's changed sign for 12 months into Capricorn. Mars takes 2.5 years roughly to orbit, so Mars is still at that new year in the sign of Scorpio, another water sign. So the elements are very important to see. If you have an element missing, often what happens is people marry it or form a partnership with someone who can bring in that missing element. So in this chart, you think, oh, you bring in an Aries or a Sagittarius or a Leo person. We have a strong energy of cardinal, very, very powerful. So that compensates a lot for lack of fire, because cardinal starts things. I'll talk more about that later. But also I thought it'd be rather interesting to look at the new moon chart, the first new moon of the year. In London, it's on 24th of January. And by then, that's where Mars has now moved into a fire sign of Sagittarius. So that's far more positive. Here you are, a little bit of fire down here. Water is not so strong, as you can see, because this is the sign of Aquarius that the Sun and Moon are in. Mercury is also in Aquarius. It likes the sign of Aquarius. It's happy there. But we still have Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, South Node, all in Capricorn. As I said, we also have that Mars in Sag. And we have a very nice relationship now of Neptune and Venus. So Venus is picking up the energy of the new moon, the new year, in Pisces, compassion, very important, and kindness. So elements, the combinations of elements. Now that's a really important thing to know. If you don't have a beginner's chart, just email me, Pam@HealingStars, and I will send it to you. I will need your birth details, of course. I will need to know your date of birth, your city of birth, country of birth, and your time of birth. Unfortunately, if you don't know your time, it's impossible. But if you book a consultation with me and you don't know your birth time, I guide you through an intuitive process to discover it. So, fire and earth. Fire and earth is powerful, very powerful, but it may lack subtlety. So very dynamic, a visionary. Fire is visionary, who gets things done, whatever the obstacle. So it keeps going. You know, fire has inspiration, earth is practical and does it. Fire and air. Now this is kind of hot air, balloon energy. Very idealistic, fire, and full of big ideas. However, they remain as ideas. We need the earth to ground it. Steamy. If fire and water is the two elements in your chart, can be very creative and may tend towards emotionality and mood swings. Just think they're very opposite, aren't they, as energies, as elements. Earth and water. Now, this is me, my chart, the nurturer and burden carrier of the zodiac, and usually very concerned with their own and others' security. So there's a natural connection. Earth and water go well together, as do fire and air. They go well. Earth and air. Now this is very dry, pragmatic, but often with a marked sense of humour, a practical intelligence. And for the rather sedentary air-water type, relationship is everything, and a good understanding of people may be in evidence. This would be very good for anybody who is a counsellor of some sort of therapist. Listening, communication, air, and having empathy, which is the emotion of water. So a lack of element, or it's usually only one element that's lacking, or it might just be low, okay? So as a rule, the individual has less control over what the given element represents. So a lack of water person may have less control over their feelings. Basically, the missing element just functions more slowly. I have met, very rarely, but I do know somebody who was lacking in water, and oh goodness me, if he started to cry, and I'm talking about healing workshops this man attended, yeah, it was very difficult to, soothe him. So that over-emotionality can be there. They often become obsessed with what the missing element signifies. So as I've said, they may marry it or do it for a living. Sometimes an underemphasis and an overemphasis on a sign can seem to manifest very similarly, even if only at first glance. Individuals often express the missing element in quite a childlike, unsophisticated and innocent way. So, for example, a lack of earth person may have no embarrassment about revealing their body and may be seemingly unaware of the effect that their semi-naked body is having on others. And laughing there, thinking, oh dear. Individuals can also be very sensitive and touchy with respect to what their missing element signifies. So those with air, underemphasized, may think others underestimate their brain power. Missing water may have a horror of being considered insensitive and so on. Can you appreciate how important it is if you're in a relationship with someone and your family of birth the same, to recognize this about them? We're all different, but having an understanding of a person's chart and the elements can be so, so helpful. And I was recently in a room with 3 fire signs. Wow, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, a lot of talking, and one person much quieter, Capricorn. It was very obvious to me. I thought, oh, this is interesting to see this. So because of this sensitivity, the individual often seeks to overcompensate. So the lack of water person may send more flowers and thank you cards, for instance. The lack of air person may be a great collector of qualifications or books. So can you see how this is working in someone's life? So on the other level, they can tend to undervalue what that given element signifies. So there's often an emotional charge around the difficult area or a negative interpretation of others who appear to be sophisticated in that area. So a lack of air person may, and I always, it isn't necessarily always going to work, but they may have a dislike of intellectuals. The lack of water, a suspicion concerning anyone who is too emotional or sweet. See, that's how they're seeing that person. Lack of earth can accuse others of being too materialistic or dislike what they consider to be undue vanity in others. Finally, a person who lacks fire may dislike the world's gamblers or those who appear to get through life just trusting to luck. I am one of those people. I must say, oh, they're lucky, aren't they? In that kind of grudging way. So, because fire is very low in my chart. It's really important to take that projection back because that's all they are, projections. So fire, sense of humor, silly, childish, Monty Python's Life of Brian. But you must not laugh at a fire person's creations including their kids, of course, or make fun of their bodies. Earth can be ironic, sarcasm, dry, witty. The UK is an earth sign. It's a Capricorn. And we do, I believe, us Brits, value that kind of humour. We can laugh at their own materialism, but get upset if you laugh at their mysticism, because it takes a lot for them to talk about spiritual things. Air. Air makes jokes at other people's emotions, mocks other people's feelings, can turn human suffering into a joke, but you mustn't laugh at their romantic feelings. They can be gushy and over-sentimental. Water. Poke fun in a gentle way. Mock people compassionately. Laugh at human emotions, but you mustn't laugh at their communication abilities and how they express themselves. It's a really important thing to know that. Teasing doesn't work very well with water signs, I can tell you it's one. So the signs of the zodiac, and I have articles on my website that go into depths about each and every sign of the zodiac. I wrote a book quite a while back called The Birthday Oracle, and in that book I do go into depth on each sign. So fire, the element which initiates action, it's expressed emotion, and fire says, I know what I want. I have the power to go get it. It's creative, confident, dramatic, exuberant, magnetic, and enthusiastic. You see how attractive these qualities are. Has an irrepressible love of life. When fire is too strong, the individual may be foolhardy, overconfident, too self-centered, and intent on meeting personal needs. Fire signs are generous. They're warm. Fire, they're actually warm, especially if the moon is in a fire sign. They have faith in themselves and in life and in their power to always get more. Fire is insatiably restless. It has a quest for novelty and a feeling of personal outreach. Where it's weak, there can often be a lack of confidence, and the courage for self-expression as an individual and the zest and humour and joy of living are diminished. So, the Aries, the first sign of zodiac, Aries, the proud lion, beautiful, king of the jungle. It's where the sun is naturally in its own sign. It's very, very positive. And the Sagittarian, the visionary. And this is the centaur is actually the image there with the arrow pointing up into the sky, into the future, on a mission. So the earth signs, the Taurus, the Virgo, Capricorn. Earth follows fire, symbolizes the capacity to handle the physical world. It's practical, realistic, thorough, productive. The last two earth signs, they're the workers. They represent all Puritan virtues. Taurus, the capacity to enjoy the world of the physical senses. Just like the cow in the field, chewing away, very happy, content, not going anywhere in particular, but loving the land, the earth. And now Uranus is in that sign. Notice the concern, the movement for the planet, saving the planet, Gaia. All the earth planets, the earth signs, the houses, have the urge to produce something in tangible form. Where earth is strong, the individual is likely to be successful in the physical world. But if it's weak, there may be great talent, but nothing productive is done with that ability. So I always look at Capricorn, which of course a lot of planets are in Capricorn. It's a mountain goat. If you've ever seen a mountain goat, they climb, they're very nimble, they get to the top. Ambition is a Capricorn energy, very, very much so. And they're looking for those juicy roots that lie at the top. So it also came from the sea. It's interesting in that regard. So now we have the air signs of Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. We've got, of course, the Libra is inanimate. It's the scales. Libra is very important because it needs not to balance, but to find the equilibrium at the center. Gemini, of course, the twins, and Aquarius is an air sign, even though it's the water bearer. Not everybody knows that, but it is. So after the life urge has poured out in some form of personal expression with fire, it's been met in the physical world with earth, air pulls back from this experience and looks at what has happened, thinks about it, talks about it. So air symbolizes the conscious reasoning mind, the power to learn and to communicate. It's the spectator. If there's too much air, the individual may spend most of their life observing and talking. Where there's too little, there may be trouble in detaching oneself from situations and being truly objective, or trouble in dealing with peers. Air is the only element able to really talk things over and compromise and take turns to be a partner. So that's, of course, that sign of Libra, naturally concerned with the 7th house of relationship. It's a key thing. Aquarius, by the way, is a fixed sign. Libra is cardinal, the seasons, the 4 seasons, and Gemini, of course, is an air sign itself. Water signs. They are Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. So water will complete the cycle. It marks the stage of absorption and assimilation. Water represents the unconscious and the past. It's the memories in the unconscious mind, habit patterns built into the functioning. Especially Cancer. It's very much ruled naturally by the moon. That's why that crab and the moon there. And that is very good if you're a writer, if you write a diary, but also very much to do with family as well. In the process, it's the process of working with experience, keeping what is functional and letting go of the rest. But when there is too much water, emotions, it's almost impossible to let go. So the natural urge of water signs is to take in, just as fire, their urge is to pour out. So water is the great caretaker, whether of people, things, institutions, or memories. And of course, memories are very, very important. And I was reading on the internet, on the Facebook page, of a woman who was 93 and she was blind. But she having to go and live in a home because her husband had died. And she put on makeup every day. She had very lovely hair as well. And when she was entering the room in the nursing home, she immediately said, "I like it." And she couldn't see it, but she felt the energy of the home. And she says how important it is. Age is like a bank account. And she said the more happy memories that you create in your life, the more you've got to withdraw from later in life when those memories are there for you. I thought it was very beautiful, very water sign. So as a key to the unconscious, it's the psychic element. And this natural psychic openness makes it the most vulnerable of all the elements. It's like raw flesh with the skin off. This is also applying to the energy of Neptune. If you have Neptune in the 1st house, it's a planet naturally to do with Pisces, so it's a water sign. And it can be very, very, very sensitive and take in what's going on around. I know quite a few people who have this. The gift, of course, as a gift always in wounds, is that compassion and empathy. So water is dependent. It needs a safe shelter while its attention is focused on the inner world. So this is my introduction to the basics of astrology. And of course, always we are a combination of different qualities and different elements in our chart. So if you haven't already bought it, my special offer, I'm running till obviously it's your stars for 2020. And this offer is £30 and you actually get 3 reports worth £45. So you're saving £15 here. If you look at my website, healingstars.com, you'll find the information. And a final note, I do run a course called The Planets Within. It's a 10-week online course, and I will be starting one in the new year. There are 5 places. One person's already signed up. So if you look again at my website, healingstars.com, you'll have all the information that you need. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Pam Carruthers of healingstars.com.